Greetings. This is Positivologist Lynette Turner, and welcome to the Positivologist is in the House. Come on in, grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, your favorite beverage, have a seat in your favorite chair or couch, and thank you so much for joining me. You can connect with me at www.positivebliss.com. So this is a show that focuses on living our lives from a positive perspective. And this doesn't mean we don't have our challenges, we don't have our problems, we all do, but we also have a choice every day when we get up to decide what kind of energy we're going to have as we're dealing with those challenges. If we're going to walk towards the light, or if we're going to fall into a dark hole and stay there. We all fall into the dark hole, and we have a choice about getting up and walking towards the light as we deal with and address our challenges each and every day. So I'm very excited about my guest tonight. Dr. Rosie Kuhn is here, and she is a thought leader in transformational coaching. So I'm really excited to hear more about what that is. And she's also written a number of very exciting and helpful books, which we're going to learn about tonight as well. But it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So sit back and relax and, turn on your antenna so that you're able to connect with all this amazing information that we're going to have tonight. So I want to welcome you, Rosie, to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, Lynette. I'm happy to be here.
Hope you're having a wonderful time there in the Orca Island area.
Orcas Island, part of the San Juans? Yes?
Yes, I know the area well.
Oh, good.
And just delighted. So before we dive into a bunch of wonderful questions, I'm going to turn it over to Rosie and ask her to tell us a little about herself, her areas of interest, what she'd like us to know about herself, and also how we can reach out, how people can reach out and connect with you if they'd like to do so after the show, and we'll do that again later. But for now, I'm going to welcome you again. Thank you for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lynette. So in essence, I'm a transformational life and spiritual coach, but that includes being a corporate coach and an organizational leader and developer, as well as training people to be life and spiritual coaches. I began this work as a marriage and family therapist about 30-some years ago, and working in the field of addiction specifically. And I realized as a therapist working in addictions that therapy wasn't addressing what was required for all of us, which is the spiritual element of reality. So I saw that many of the people who were in recovery had something I didn't have. They had serenity. They had a way of accepting life as it is. They had a way of surrendering their problems or their issues to a higher power and to be with what is. So in a sense, they had, again, the serenity, and it's like therapy doesn't address that. Right. So after being part of the addictions field, I went and got my PhD in transpersonal psychology at what was the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, and it's now known as Sophia University in Palo Alto, California. So I studied transpersonal psychology, then found life coaching, which for me was this integration of spirituality and a greater self, and stepping into our optimal self, into our flourishing self. And that means letting go of what no longer works for us. And again, surrendering what no longer works. So that's what I've been up to in the last 35 years.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like it's actually a practice where, as much as you were able to help people, that you learn from them as well, from their experiences?
Absolutely. I think one of my best teachers have been my clients, in that how do you learn how to speak or communicate or listen without somebody in front of you who's actually listening and speaking, so that you could have that relationship. Right. So all my students and my clients have been my best teachers.
And have you found that your clients are open to the discussion of the spiritual part of it, and really combining the two? Or do they even know that, do some of them know that that's lacking? Do they not know what to call it? You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of times it starts with them wanting something specifically, at least now as a life and spiritual coach. And actually, I work with executives and managers and corporations. A lot of times it starts out wanting something in our tangible world. They want a raise, or they want promotion, or they want people who want a better life or quality of life. They want children, or they want families. Whatever it is that they want, it starts out in the 3D world that we think of. But in order to get there, we have to start with a leap of faith. We have to say, okay, what has been happening hasn't worked for you up till now. And so what do you need to let go of or shift in order to move forward? And in the leap of faith, if you will, which is generally just a shift in one thought to another, people find it that there's this faith element of letting go. And so that, in a sense, is the beginning for a lot of people of the conversation about spirituality and how to start to begin to be in relationship with something beyond the world that we see and as we know is reasonable.
You know, I think, and a huge part of that is people, me, all of us, acknowledging what's not working. Because sometimes it's just easier to, well, you know, I've been going down this path and somehow I've been surviving, and change is scary, and, you know, all the things we tell ourselves to give ourselves permission to stay stuck, when we'd be so much happier if we would just let ourselves move through the experience, even if it's painful.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I'm very intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by the balance of living in the spiritual realm and living in the human earth realm. And, you know, we have to do both of them. And in our correspondence about the show, you talked about how people can get so sort of entrenched in the spiritual world of meditation and yoga, sound healing and Reiki, and so let's just stay there and
yes.
not deal with the pain. And you actually had written "no pain, no gain." I'm sure some people were like, "Ooh,
ew."
Do you have to say that? We don't want pain. Don't say that out loud.
You know, a lot of times when I'm writing, it's very intuitive, if you will. I mean, it's like, and I saw those words come onto the paper, and I went, oh, wow, okay, that's relevant. That's really relevant. In some ways.
So, can we start by you talking a little bit about why do people do that? I mean, why? We're here, and whether we like it or not, we can embrace this human experience, and we can have the attitude of, we're stuck in this human experience.
Yes.
I tend to embrace it. For me, even the hard stuff, it's like we're all energy, and so the good stuff that comes to me, I'm like, I do this to me for some reason. If it's hard or challenging, I do that to me as well. There's something that I can learn from it.
That's right.
But that's my perspective. Probably not everybody's. But why don't people want to go there?
Well, first of all, I think we're given we're given mixed messages. Okay, we're given the message that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and most of us go, oh, that's wonderful, and that the divine unfolding is always perfect, and we go, oh, that's wonderful, when it's working in our favor. When it's not working in our favor, we think there's something wrong with us or the world or something. So we go to right or wrong or good or bad. It's not working. But the other element is that we're given in our reality, with consensus reality, we're told to be creative and inspired and think spiritually and all of that. But consensus view of reality makes it really scary to do that. Right. In a sense that if I take a leap of faith, I'm going to risk vulnerability. I'm going to risk losing what I have. I'm going to risk failure, or the perception of failure.
Yeah.
I'm going to perhaps be humiliated. And so all of those fears say, well, maybe I'll do that tomorrow. The other thing is that we have all of these messages from our spiritual teachers who say meditation, yoga, pray, read, do mantras. If you do those things, your life will be spiritually fulfilling. And so people do that, and they find their life isn't as spiritually fulfilling as they expect it to be. So people give up, or they try a different venue of spirituality, or go to traditional or tribal shamans or something that is different in order to try to get the peace and tranquility that we should get by being spiritual.
Right.
We're not just spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. That human experience is about evolving ourselves. It's about getting to know ourselves. It's about getting ourselves into challenges so that we can learn learn about ourselves and the world and how we've been doing it, and seeing that may not be the best way, and looking for opportunities, and looking for teachers, or looking for coaches or therapists, or people that can support us in seeing it differently, and then perhaps doing something differently with that. So when we have a challenge in our life, sometimes we can't avoid it. For instance, people who get a diagnosis of a disease, or people who lose their job, or a divorce, or separation, or a loss. Those things we can't put off as potential catalysts for spiritual growth and development, or even human development and growth. But there are some ways that we tend to avoid, like, I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to go walking every day, or I want to be closer to my children, or but we'll just put it off because I want some comfort, I want some downtime, I want to play, whatever it is that has us wait until tomorrow to start whatever our human spiritual adventure is.
How do we get rid of the fear? I mean, sometimes I think it's fear of the unknown, like we talk fear of potential failure. How do we get out of our own way enough? And so I'm thinking of times in my life, or people I know, good intentions.
Yeah.
But it's just scary.
So what's been really valuable to me, and then what I've been using, it's sort of like my life has been an experiment, and I think every one of us can have a life that is experimental, because you try one thing at a time, one thought at a time, one action at a time. So we're not really taking these leaps of faith. We're just saying, for this moment, I'm not going to have a cookie. For this moment, I'm not going to look at my Facebook, just for this moment. So first of all, breaking it down into one incremental thing. The other thing that's interesting is that most of us who consider ourselves spiritual, we can say, I know the universe is abundant. I know that I'm always being supported by the divine. I know that the unfolding of life is perfect.
Right.
Okay? So if I know that, then how about if I choose my beliefs and my actions based on my knowing, as opposed to my fear?
And that requires some trust, right? That requires some trust.
That cultivates trust, yes.
Yeah.
And most of us don't have 100% trust in the world, or others, or ourselves. So again, incrementally, we have to start one moment at a time, one action or thought at a time, to build that trust. For this moment, I'm going to trust that the universe is supporting me. I'm going to trust in this moment that even though I feel totally alone, that I've got support around me that I might not be able to see. In this moment, I'm going to trust that, because that's what I'm speaking, right?
Right.
As a positive individual, you say, here's what's true about the universe. Here's what's true about life. And so when we get scared, we go, oh, wait a second. Why am I scared when I'm totally believe and speak about life as this unfolding perfect divine order?
And I think it's probably also about not beating yourself up if you do stumble and fall. You know, you mentioned the cookies. Of course, I perked up, because that's my, I joke with my friends. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm not interested in drugs. Sugar is my drug of choice.
Yes.
And that's just the truth of the matter. And I can go long periods of time, and I look at a cookie and it's nothing. Other times, and I've tried to find the triggers. People say, "Oh, it's when you're happy, when you're sad." I'm like, there's no rhyme or reason to my sugar thing. Yeah. When I'm in the right frame of mind and I fall off the sugar wagon, I can get back up and say, look, I am human. I'm not, I am perfect in my imperfections. And you just get up and keep moving forward and doing that again. And I know some people have an easier time doing that than other people. Other people just beat themselves up for a long time. And it's, just like when I tell people, every day when you wake up, you can decide what kind of attitude you're going to have. And if you're a person who is just of a mindset that, if something bad happens and then it spirals into nothing good ever happens, everything's always negative, then that's what the universe, I believe, is going to bring to you, if that's what you keep telling yourself in the universe.
That's right.
So even for me saying those words, if I don't always believe them, I will. If I say it enough, I'll start to feel it, and then I'll believe it, and then I'll start to live.
Yes. And a question I ask people a lot, as I just said, is like, what do you tell other people about the divine, about the universe? And they say, well, I tell them the universe is always supportive. And okay, so how can you bring that into your life as opposed to telling just other people about that?
Harder to take your own medicine, right?
That's right. That's right. And obviously it's easier, as people always say to me, well, it's easier said than done.
Right.
It's like, obviously, but unless you start the practice of stepping into your own words and your own truth, then you will not make any progress, right? You just can't. And we're hoping we have this sense of, do this and it will happen immediately. 10 ways to make your life full, and just these 10 ways will get you. But it doesn't work that way, because we have to be, it's like having a great argument, discussion, relationship with another human being. It's like, but it's with ourselves, in being able to really struggle with what's in our highest truth, what's in our highest value, what makes the greatest contribution in the world from this individual. Right. And so it's challenging.
What about this sort of idea? So you would talk earlier about people think this is good or this is bad. Right. What if our attitude was, it is. It just is. And we don't judge it.
That's right.
Good or bad.
But when we don't judge it, we can and we allow it to be what it is, which is really hard, because we're either trying to get into the future or avoid the past.
Yes.
That's all we're doing, right?
Yes.
If I want to lose weight, it's because I want to get into the future and see myself as this. Or
even for a specific thing, like, oh, I'm going to my high school reunion, which
yes,
that doesn't work.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we're either moving towards the future or avoiding the past. Unless I don't want to do that anymore. That's what we say.
Right.
But like you're saying, if we can be just with what is, then that's a good start. But it's like, well, how is that I can be with myself when I hate how heavy I am, or I hate my job, or I hate my, whatever it is that we hate. How can I be with that? And this is where having a thinking partner or a coach is really, really helpful, because to be with oneself is really challenging, especially when we've seen ourselves as bad or ugly or not enough in whatever way that is.
Well, and if you're in an environment where that's reinforced, that doesn't help either. If you're in a relationship or, your work environment or your kids or whatever it is, where do you get that support to sort of move forward in a positive way?
That's right. There's so many coaches and spiritual guides and therapists that are here to support people in moving. Well, we say move on, but really, if we can be with what is, we're so much better off. And this is where my work in addiction really paid off, in a sense that I see that everything that keeps us from being right here, right now, is in a sense an addictive habit or an addictive behavior, so that I don't have to feel my discomfort. In the AA or the addiction or the fellowship community, it's a restless, irritable discontent. So anytime we have restless, irritable discontent, we want to do something so we don't feel that. So whether it's drinking or food or sex or retail or worry or anxiety, all of these things are ways that we can avoid the restless, irritable discontent.
So I think part of it would be helping people to appreciate and believe that they're worthy. A lot of people just don't think they're worthy of, I've got all these problems, I must deserve it. I'm not worthy of being happy or having that relationship I want. And to get out of our own way that way in terms of our thinking and our feeling about ourselves, I would think would be a powerful pathway to us being happier, more balanced people.
So people can be, in a sense, the use of I'm unworthy is another form, in a sense, an addictive pattern in our thinking. It's also an addictive patterning in our physiology. Our cellular memory has brought, most likely, I believe, our past lives, if you will.
Yes.
We come into the world already carrying cellular memory through our DNA of past life traumas, all kinds of things. So our body, whether it's past life or this lifetime, is carrying that cellular embodied perspective. So it's not just this thing up here, but it's our whole being that says, I'm not worthy.
Right. And
So
I think you're
there's an
right on the
addiction.
mark about, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rosie.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
About it maybe coming through from past lives. I'm often perplexed by someone who some really amazing good thing will happen, and they'll immediately go to how it could turn bad, or how, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this incredible, amazing thing happened. So let's say somebody is they're finally in this relationship they've really been working for, and then they immediately go to, oh yes, but I know this isn't going to last. This person's going to leave me. I'm like, why would you put that energy out there? Appreciate what it is, and visualize and feel the good that's happening, so that you generate more of that versus the opposite.
Yes, and I like what you're saying, because in a sense it's like catching us in our thoughts and saying, so I'm thinking, oh, this is just going to turn bad like everything else. It's like, so why would I say that? What am I attached to in that perspective? Like, I'm attached to not being vulnerable. So if I think it's already going to be bad, then at least I don't have to be vulnerable when it is bad.
Right. And then they say, oh, I told you so. I'm like, well.
Yeah, good for you.
yeah. Let's switch that a little bit. So there might be people who are consciously doing the spiritual being and avoiding the human being part of it. But I wonder if there are spiritual people who really are unconscious about it. They're not even realizing that they're not really accepting, embracing, working through the human part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And we call that a spiritual bypass, thinking of a spiritual bypass, which I love that term. And I, as much as anybody else, was an active participant in that game of thinking that if I was spiritual enough, I wouldn't have to deal with human dilemmas, that I wouldn't have the angst and the anguish and the incredible human experiences that come by engaging and immersing oneself in the human experience. One of the books that I highly recommend, unfortunately I didn't write it, so somebody else.
But you wrote many other great ones, which I hope we'll talk about later.
Yes. This one is called Oneness, the Teachings. It's Rasha, R-A-S-H-A, wrote it. And now I say that, and then I always forget why I said it, because I forget what my point was. What were we talking about?
Oh, so he wrote a great book about, we're talking about some people who are unconscious in terms of they're living the spiritual life, but they don't even realize that they're ignoring the human part.
Yes. It's that we came here, and I truly, truly, truly believe this, we came here to have the human experience. All of it. Not just the Disneyland aspect of it, but we came here, like, you know, when we go through, in Disneyland, we go through things that are scary, right? We go through all of that to be scared, because we want the human experience of that. But it's like, but I want it vicariously. I'll watch it on the movies, that kind of stuff. It's like, no. You came here to have the direct experience of love and loss and passion and despair, all of it. We came here for all of it. And for me, when I remember that, then I can be present to what is in this moment, feeling my fullest human expression of despair, anguish, beauty, laughter, all of it. But if I say, oh no, I can only feel this, and I have to avoid that, now we've limited ourselves, and we start strategizing how to do this, more of this, but less of that. And
right.
Now we get smaller and smaller and more vigilant about feeling and not feeling, until we're on anti-anxiety medicine, or all kinds of other medications to support not letting ourselves be the full human being. We think we are the ego, we think we're being human, but when somebody mentions something that's more human, like despair, people go, oh crap, no God. Forget that. I'm going to go watch TV, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people, because I've coined this phrase positivologist, and so people think, oh my gosh, you're a positivologist. You must not have any problems, you must have any issues. What is it like living a life like that? And I was like, I wouldn't know what it's like living a life like that, because I have all the issues and all the problems that you have. I have them. Yes. I just choose a certain attitude to deal with them, that's all. It's not that they don't come to me and I don't acknowledge that they're there. Yes. I have to otherwise, I think that if we can figure out the balance, then it's kind of an ideal way to live, because it's because of my spiritual practices that I'm able to address or deal with.
Yes.
You know? And
yes.
I mean, of course, would I love to just be floating all the time and not have any issues or problems come my way? I love that. I mean, that's part of when I take that time every day to meditate, to be in that space. That's a wonderful place to be, and I try to bring that energy with me into the world. But into the world means at my day job there's clients and there's issues and there's travel, and yes. I have to deal with all that. But I'm far from perfect at doing it. I'm a work in progress.
Yes.
But I keep trying to integrate the two. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So can you share any examples, of course not by name, of people trying to do that avoidance, and what you have done to sort of help them come to terms with the duality of the two?
So whether I'm working with clients or training people to be life coaches, there are 4 basic questions that I ask. First question is, what do you want? And
okay, I'm just gonna think my answers as you talk. Yeah.
Okay. So most people, I'm working with a new trainee, and she says, "So do you say so? What brings you here?" When a client comes in, and I go, "No," because they'll start telling me their story about their Aunt Jane and their mother's whatever, and they won't get around to, so why are you here, basically? And why we're here, or why a client is here, is because they have something they want specifically, enough that they're willing to pay for it. So that's number 1. And if we're not clear about that, no matter what, people will get stuck. So number 1, what do you want? Number 2, what are the obstacles in the way to have what you want? Have what you want. What are the obstacles? So most likely people will say, well, my mother, it's money, it's travel, it's a vehicle, it's job, it's career, it's boss. Okay, it's all of that. That's number 2. What are the obstacles? Number 3, question number 3, what needs to shift for those obstacles to disappear? And people will say, my attitude. They'll say, I need to shift my relationship with my mother. I need to move out of the house. I need to get a better job where I can make enough money so that I can, okay? And that I want more peace, so I'm going to leave this, I have to leave this job, okay? So they're spelling it out for themselves. Here's what I need. This is what needs to shift. The 4th question, what are you willing to practice so that shifts, those obstacles disappear, and you have what you want?
And do people always know the answer to that 4th question?
I think that's they'll get stopped, if you will, because it's like, oh, now if I answer that question, now I'm committed.
Yeah, because as you said, the 4 questions, that's where I got stuck.
Yeah, because if I speak it, I'm already paying. You're already paying me, right? You're paying me to ask these questions. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's this kind of work is about personal accountability. It's about empowering yourself to have the life you want. So the first book I wrote was called Self-Empowerment 101. And it's really about looking at how you empower yourself to get what you want and how you empower yourself to not get what you want. So we're never disempowered. We're always empowered.
But we self-sabotage sometimes, right?
That's right. We're choosing to sabotage ourselves. And then you got to ask, so what do you want? You're telling me you want this, but what you're doing is giving you this.
Right.
What do you want?
So if someone says, what I want is a better job because I need more money, and they're like, but what can I do because I'm in this job, maybe I don't like it, but at least it's a job, I can't leave it to go find another job, look at the job market. How does one,
So I say,
lots of people out there with that scenario.
That's right. I say, what do you want? Because they can say, I want a different job, but then they start answering why they can't have another job.
Right.
I say, what do you want? And they say, I want a job that really is more fulfilling. Okay, great. Let's just put a period at the end of that without putting yes, buts and what abouts and all of that.
Right.
Okay? So first of all, for people to say, here's what I want, is something that's actually quite critical for people to say. Because there's always the, here's what I want, but I can't have it. Or here's why I can't have it. So a lot of people have a context around wanting that won't let them have it. Or they can want it but not have it. There's all that kind of craziness.
What about, I mean, I've actually encountered people that they really don't know what they want. They know they're not. They know they're not happy. They don't. I mean, I'm like, I feel so blessed that, you know, I have my day job and I have my all my positivity modalities. I feel very lucky to, you know, I know what I want to do and I'm doing it.
Yes.
You know, maybe not all of it as fully as I would like to, but at least I'm doing it. But I definitely know people and I've encountered people who are like, well, I know I'm not happy, but I don't even know what I want. So I'm sure with your expertise, you have a way of helping them uncover or discover what that is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of time and going from the place of, so what don't you want? What don't you want to feel? Well, I don't want to feel bored and stuck, and okay, great. That gives you a starting place to move towards. What would have to shift if I was talking to someone and they said, I don't want the boredom, I don't want the crummy relationships at work, and I don't want the hours. Okay, great. So what would need to shift so that you could move that from, let's say that's 10% towards fulfillment. We wanted to increase that closer to 5% closer to what you want. What would have to shift? And they'd say, oh, and they know immediately.
Right, now that you ask me that way.
That's right. So a lot of times for a lot of coaches, it's really a matter of asking the question in a way that the client can see, oh, I only have to do this. It's this, or I remember the time that I, you know, and then they remember something where they had some joy or some fulfillment,
right,
in some element, or there's a piece of the job that actually is fulfilling, but they have to do all this other stuff that's not. So they go, oh, here's the part that I like. So they start, even just the conversation helps them to see and experience, oh, I do like this, and I don't like this, or I like this, but I don't like. And they're able to describe it better for themselves.
Yeah.
So the way of just asking for even for all of us in relation to our children or our family members and friends to be able to ask questions in a way that engages people, which we don't do that very often, do we? We don't have engaging conversations with friends where we say, hey, tell me about that. Tell me what it's like to be you in that circumstance.
Well, and that's really part of the whole sort of art of, I always say it's a learned skill, the art of listening.
Yes.
Because we sort of half listen, we finish people's sentences, we answer when they haven't asked us anything. It's always like, you know, there's active and passive listening. Sometimes you can say, do you want me to ask questions or clarity, or just want to be listened to? Yes. It can be very powerful. And people can sometimes figure stuff out themselves if we just listen to them.
Yes. And isn't it fascinating? We all want to be listened to, but we don't take the time to listen in order to actually have that experience.
Well, in this day of like everyone's got their iPad, their iPhone, and they're texting, and multitasking all the time.
And if you say, so what do you want? They go, well, I want to be here with you. It's like, really?
Well, I always tell people, whatever experience we're having, that's exactly where we're supposed to be right now. If it's a really hard experience, well, we're going to work through it and learn from it and maybe learn something so we don't experience it again. If it's a wonderful experience, we're just going to embrace it and truly enjoy the experience. Have you ever encountered people who, they don't know they're missing the boat, right? So they might even verbally say, oh, yes, I'm balanced, I've got it all together. But clearly by your skill and your conversation, you know that it could probably be a little bit more balanced. Do you find that, and how do you, again, it's probably asking the right questions, listening, to help them get into even a better place than they are currently?
A friend of mine, this is a really good example, a friend of mine has been having a challenging relationship with a person, and this person's partner has gone on 2 10-day Vipassana retreats. So has gone meditating twice for 10 days. So my friend says she has gone on these Vipassana retreats, like she is like somehow enlightened and beyond, you know. And it's like, no, she just went on 2 Vipassana meditation retreats. That doesn't tell us anything about her ability to be human in this moment.
Right.
And so it's that challenge of, in most, like you're saying, Lynette, most people who are on the spiritual path aren't aware that they're not necessarily on the human path. We kind of take that for granted until something challenging happens. And we go, wait, I'm a spiritual, like I said this myself 5 years ago when I left my work at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology for something. I knew there was like a trajectory I was called to. And so I imagined that after, 2 days later, I'd pick up my phone and Oprah would be there or something.
Right.
Well, nothing happened for a long time, and it was like, how could that be? I'm so evolved. And I was crushed. And I was so anxious and scared because I didn't have the support that it looked like I would need.
Right.
But the purpose of all of that was me to learn that the support is always available, because my perspective is the universe is my support. The universe is the source. I am the source. So that was my practice. And until I got that, I was stuck in scared and frightened and worried, and it isn't going to happen for me. I'm going to lose everything.
But Rosie, it's wonderful for you to share that personal experience, as I do too, because again, sometimes people think, and I'm a interfaith, interspiritual minister, so of course ministers know everything too, which we don't.
That's right. Right.
So just to show that our own vulnerability and our own learning curve, or trying to figure it out just like everybody else. So if someone came to you and said, look, what are truly the benefits of me embracing this human side? Why should I go there? What would you tell them?
Well, I would probably ask the question in another way. I would ask them how it's going for them to resist being human. I would ask them how it's going for them to ignore and avoid their humanness.
Wow. And the answer is going to have to be it's hard, because it is. If you
That's right.
Ignore it.
That's right. It's hard. It's hard anyway, but it's also hard because we're resisting and avoiding and distracting and denying.
Right.
And this is a lot of work to hold this while I'm trying to have a conversation with you, right?
Right.
While I'm trying to get to know you, or trying to make money, or it's like, this is a lot of work because I'm resisting being human. We hear this about in corporate world. A lot of people lose their souls in the corporation because the corporation is void of humanness. Do not bring your human side into the workplace. It's agonizing, and it's creating a lot of disease and a lot of stress-related diseases. We know that, and a lot of people leave having lost their soul and having to do something to try to bring themselves back and integrate.
And I mean, don't you think it's important, and you said you work with corporate people, to somehow bring them in alignment with that, and how it can work together? I recently facilitated a board retreat, so it was formal, it was board and staff, but it was at a spiritual center. And oh my gosh, it was so different from in my corporate day when I'm facilitating workshops, to be able to do a ritual in the workshop about releasing what you don't need, and opening your mind and heart to what is going to, I get chills just thinking about it. And just how, if we could do that in the corporate world, because it's a ripple effect, and the people in the corporate world have a lot of power and a lot of influence.
Yes.
And certainly I would guess if you can get it from the top down, right?
Yes.
That would just what a difference that would, I think, really make in the world that we live in.
A fellow that I worked with when I was living in Silicon Valley, he was a VP of a very, like, one of the top computer companies in the world. And he shared with me at the end that he was a Reiki master. Not Reiki 1 or 2, he was a Reiki master. And the corporate world, Reiki. There was no integration for him, and he was on his way out. That's why he was seeing me, because he was looking to do something else and wanted that support. But it was like, holy cow, here's this, how does that work? But the two worlds, the duality of that, as opposed to how do we bring it together? I mean,
as I think about it now, I think some of it must be what what people think success is and what one has to do to be successful, and what one thinks, the way they think they have to act or be perceived in order to be successful.
That's right.
So
it's all about the persona. Here's what I'm showing you, and here's what I am not allowed to be. I'm not allowed to be as I'm showing you this. And this is what kills us inevitably, is how we're not allowed to be. How we don't allow ourselves to be.
Yeah. Oh, we need more of those people at the top. Good work, Rosie. Keep going out there and getting those corporate people to
I've written 2 books about the corporate world. One is The ABCs of Spirituality and Business, which was really fun to write.
Well, tell us a little bit about that book.
Oh, it's based on 26 blogs of the ABCs of Spirituality and Business. I was asked by someone to write some blogs for a particular site, and nobody was writing about spirituality and business, so that was a good springboard, was to write about ABCs and spirituality and business. And it's looking at the very basics of allowance and acknowledgement and kindness, but also some of the more challenging ones, that I don't remember in this particular moment because I haven't looked at the book very often. And the other book is called Dilemmas of Being in Business, because as we're saying, people are striving for higher positions, higher status, higher wage, and that's what they're wanting. But at the same time, they don't want to let go of, or they want their humanness, they want their humanity, and so there's a dilemma. And so that book is also based on 26 blogs of specific relationships that I've had with different individuals where they were challenged, and how did they choose based on what they wanted and what they wanted to avoid, if you will.
Right. Rosie, what's your website, just so people can know what it is to
my website is theparadigmshifts.com. Theparadigmshifts.com. If it's easy to Google Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and the Paradigm Shifts will come up, so that's a good thing. So Rosie Kuhn or the Dr. Rosie Kuhn, the Paradigm Shifts will come up, and all my books are there. And you can find me on Amazon as well.
Right, and great blog. So I encourage everybody out there to check it out. There's a lot of wonderful stuff.
Thank you.
So in our correspondence, one of the things you wrote about was how people are afraid to show emotion. What's that fear about? Why don't people want? Because they'll be perceived as weak or not capable, or
first of all,
might be different between men and women, right? We know the whole thing about, if women are pushy and this and that, and don't cry if you're,
Yes.
Is there a double standard?
Well, I think that I think that part of showing the emotion is being able to experience emotion. And if we don't want to experience our humanness, then we're not going to want to experience emotion. A lot of people who are, we'll say, addicted to anxiety, because anxiety is comfortable for them, which is fascinating. It's a comfort zone for them. Worry is a comfort zone for people. Guilt is a comfort zone. Anger is a comfort zone for some people. You see people being angry because that's a comfort zone. You know what I'm saying?
That just so kind of blows my mind, because, maybe because I don't find comfort there. Maybe that's why I'm everyone's different, and everyone, I always think too, people are quite often a product of how they were raised or what they experienced growing up, and so
that's right.
I wasn't raised around that, so I don't have a tendency towards it, but
that's right.
We all have different experiences that shape who we are. At the same time, we all have the opportunity to shift and change and become something different.
That's right.
If we want to put the work into it.
That's right. When I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to be angry, and so I took the angry and put it into loving kindness, which you'd think would be great, except I never allowed myself to even know that I had anger, that I felt powerless and rage sometimes. I didn't let myself know that until much later in life. And so that energy that I never acknowledged is still in my body, or was in my body, and creates orientation in the world. Be nice. Don't make people angry. Don't, because of whatever the perceptions that I have. So when we limit ourselves, we limit our full capacity to be our essential self, which is what we came here to be. People say, I want to live my purpose. Okay, great. Here's what you got to do. Start being you, as opposed to saying, I want my life purpose, I want to live it, but I don't want, and then fill in the blank.
And it doesn't mean you have to be, let's say if you need to show some kind of anger. You don't have to be mean and vindictive, and you know, it's like I always say, if someone's gonna jump off a cliff, one person will say, oh yes, how fast should I run to jump? And someone else is like, no, I'm not jumping.
No,
it's because of how you communicate it, right?
That's right.
So
it's not about, it's about allowing yourself to experience the energy. It's energy in motion is emotion, okay? Energy in motion. It's just that. But we go, oh, that's anger, that's bad. Oh, that's, you know, and we put labels on it, and now we're starting to compress, as opposed to say, here's an energy that's coming through, period. Like you said, that's that's the isness of it. Okay?
right.
I feel angry. I'm feeling an experience of energy coming through that I interpret as anger, and I go, wow, what's that about? Oh, somebody must have said something or done something, and I feel powerless right now. I feel like I got whatever, betrayed, abandoned, abused, whatever.
Right.
So, but allowing myself to have the experience, number one, without, I don't have to, like you say, bang people over the head. I don't have to cry and be the victim, but to allow myself to feel like, wow, that feels not so good right now. And to allow the full feeling until we feel the fullness. It's like education, an educational exam. Until we get the fullness of it, we won't pass to the next level. We won't be able to let that go. It'll always be circling around. But once we get it to the fullness, it'll go away. It's fascinating, but it's true.
For each of us, it's probably a balance of how to do that, right? Because there's one person who's completely suppressing it. They're probably even getting physically sick from not letting it.
Right.
There's someone else who's like completely out of control with their anger and blaming other people and scaring other people.
Right.
And so,
and saying, this is good for me to yell and scream. It's like, I don't think that's the point. It's not the point to yell and scream. And I mean, that might be in a safe place, but it isn't necessarily where you think you're able to do that.
Right.
You have the right to do that, like beating up people or abusing children or whatever it is. You don't have the right to do that just because you have some anger.
Right.
So learning, that's the emotional intelligent element of how do I learn to be with this that feels so uncomfortable. Anguish and angst and despair are not happy emotions. Right. But they're part of what we came here to experience, I believe.
See, Rosie, a huge thing you said is that for people to understand that they don't have to deal with this or figure it out alone, that there are places, because I really think there's a lot of people who think that, I have to figure this out myself, no one's going to understand, I don't quite understand, no one else is going to understand, I'm going to be perceived as weak if I go out and I try to get help someplace. Or they're there and really helpful to everybody else, but they don't. There's not self-care going on. So I would guess there's some of that going on, and I would also guess that perhaps what happens is sometimes you eventually get to a point where something's got to give.
Yeah.
And so even if you feel uncomfortable or scared or embarrassed or whatever, that hopefully you reach out somewhere for someone.
Yeah.
To help.
A lot of times people, the excuse will be it's about the money, and it's like there are so many support groups and fellowships, 12-step programs for everyone that are free, and so as well as ministries where people can get spiritual guidance or mental health for free. So it's not it doesn't have to be about the money. It's really about the commitment to be present in your life and accountable for the degree of happiness and fulfillment that you can bring into your life.
And probably a little bit of a fear factor for people who say, well, I don't believe in support groups, or I know they won't help me, or you gotta give it a try.
Well, I just go back to, so what do you want?
Yeah.
And what do you want enough that you're willing to step into something that feels uncomfortable.
Right.
I hate
right.
stepping in. Coaching sessions, I hate coaching sessions because my coach is going to take me places that I'm not comfortable with. And that's the point.
And make me accountable,
That's right.
Accountable.
It stretches our capacity to be who we are.
Right.
And people say, I want to be the best I can be. It's like, okay, well, you got to start stretching the yoga of humanness, if you will. It's the yoga of stretching those muscles, capacity to be. When we're doing a yoga, let's say a downward facing dog or whatever you want to call it, that's really hard. And you have to stretch those muscles and be disciplined. And so people who go to yoga and stretch, they have a dedication to being with that discomfort.
Right.
And it's the same with the emotional discomfort, the spiritual discomfort, the physical discomfort of this human potential that we are. I want to coin some phrase about human yoga or whatever, but anyway, people, you get it.
I have a brother who was in the corporate world and doing the corporate thing, and that's what he did. And he left all of it and became a yoga instructor.
That's awesome.
None of us would have ever predicted. And he's good at both worlds. He knows the challenges and issues and everything, but he is so peaceful, so calm, so rational. And again, they have issues and problems that they work out, but it's like he's like this living, walking example of me. If someone would have said, 10 years ago, your brother is gonna, we're like, the family's like, we love it and we applaud. We're like, what?
Nice.
Listening
That's
to your
wonderful.
calling and just,
That's right.
trusting your path at
That's right.
any age and being willing to go down that road and see
That's
where,
right.
see where it's going to take you.
And we think that we're unique in our fears of moving forward, and we're not. Every one of us has this desire to live in our fullest potential, and every one of us has to face our fear of doing so. And it's almost like the degree that you want this is the degree to which fear will match it, so that you can strengthen your convictions to have what you want.
Right.
If it's easy, it's not set up to be that way.
Yeah. And I think you're right. When it gets hard enough and you're like pushed hard enough, then you're just like, I have to do this. I'm not sure what it's gonna, and and sometimes this calling is so strong. It's like when I graduated last year from seminary school, and no one would have ever told me that this is something I was going to do, but I just had this. It was like divine intervention. You need to go do this, and you need to go do this now. And I'm an organized Virgo, so I usually okay, well, in 2 years, I'll make sure I have enough time. I'll make sure I have enough money. And literally, Spirit was waking me up every night for like a week saying, call, and the place is called One Spirit Learning Alliance. Call One Spirit. Out of exhaustion. Finally, after a week, I picked up the phone and called, and I got in and I did it. But, the divine will guide us. And sometimes, will kind of shake us until we wake up and really listen to what it is that message is and what's going to best serve us, and that we don't have to do it alone.
That's right. And we're not doing it alone. And we're not in control. We want to think we're in control, but we're not in control at all. I wrote another book I wrote is called The Unholy Path of a Reluctant Adventurer. And it starts, it's got a picture of me as in my first communion dress on the cover. So starting from Catholic and going in that direction. But I crossed the Atlantic Ocean on a sailboat and moved to Nova Scotia. I did a lot of things that were so out of consensus view of reality. All of those things were things that I was called to do. Even give custody up of my children, which was the most important relationship in my life. But in their best interest, and in this calling of knowing what's true and what's best, I was able to do that because I had that knowing. It was excruciating. But everything that have been the high points of my life have been divinely guided. My going to Nova Scotia, or going on this Atlantic crossing, or going to California to school, which I said I would never do. Living on an island in northern Washington. It's all been part of a calling, and the willingness and the courage, I think, for everyone to follow their calling is what we're here to do. We've always got that divine guidance. Like you said, you've got it every night. You just have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And
So
the more
Rosie,
we listen, the more we get that information.
and then we walk down that path. Talk a little bit about your book. You know you're transforming when. I was fortunate to watch you on another show on Conscious Evolution Network about that book, and I just thought it was amazing. So talk a bit about that, because we're transforming all the time, right? There's all these things that happen that let us know that that's what's going on.
Yes. I wrote one of the blogs on my site is called "We Want Transformation, We Just Don't Want to Change," and it was looking at, and I was writing something about that particular situation of, we don't want to change because there's always loss. We perceive it's always loss with change, but we want transformation. But we don't know if we transform. We really don't know who we're going to be or how we're going to be once transformed. And so the willingness to step into that possibility of transforming is huge, right? It's like, I'm a caterpillar and I don't even have a concept of butterfly, but that I want transformation.
Right.
Like, what am I thinking, right? So we stop ourselves and go have a cup of coffee and whatever. So this book came out of those moments of the distinction basically between managing our situation and actually transforming it, where there's no more coping, there's no need to manage because there's nothing to manage. It's transformed. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right.
So I was thinking about that, like, you're transforming when you're no longer managing your situation. You're no longer having to cope or deal with. And that was just the start. And then another one just followed after. You're transforming when you're laughing where you used to be really pissed off about traffic or something like that, You're transforming when you wake up with a smile on your face. You're transforming when you allow yourself to dream and desire. You're transforming when you smile at the people that used to make you grumpy. Those kinds of things.
That sounds like a great book to have when, you just wake up and, the divine is going to tell me what I need to look today. And you open the book up and there's your message.
Yes.
There's your message.
Yes.
Our time's almost up, but I want to talk a moment about just energy. The energy shift that's going on. It feels like the vibration is rising, and either more people are becoming just more connected to being of good use in the world and being connected to spirit, or I'm more aware of them. I don't know which one it is, but it just feels like there's kind of a high vibrational energy going on right now. Are you feeling that at all?
Well, I hear it's going on, it's because people talk about it, and the evidence of it, in a sense, are the number of shows like this one of transformation and self-revelation and realization and actualization. There's so many more opportunities for people to read or hear or listen to or see people talking about and experiencing this spiritual evolution. And so many, even relevant to animals or the environment or good ways of using money. There's so many positive changes that we can see in the world if we're willing to look in that direction.
And Rosie, you are clearly making some of those positive changes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been wonderfully delightful, and I encourage everyone to go to Rosie's website and check out her book and her blogs and connect with her and see if you're a good candidate for her to work with you in coaching. And so, Rosie, give us your website your address one more time so the viewers have it.
It's the Paradigm Shifts with the S, theparadigmshifts.com.
Excellent.
And again, Googling Dr. Rosie Kuhn, Kuhn, you'll find me. You'll see this picture right here.
Pop up all over the place.
It'll pop up all over the place.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Lynette, for having me.
Right. So that's it for this show, everyone. I want to thank you so much again for joining me. And remember that life is about bliss. BLISS. Believe life is something special, because it is, and so are you. You can reach me at my website, www.positivebliss.com. Sign up for my free weekly positivity message. We can all use one of those. And Take the time to walk through the landscape of possibility. I really believe you're going to enjoy what you see there. Until next time, this is Positivologist Lynette Turner. I'll see you again right here on The Positivologist is in the House. Blessings and namaste.
Namaste.